Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Dusty Circuit here, and I apologize for the lack of uploads of at least of these videos lately. I've had two Valentine's Day events on AC and ACO, and we're having 4 birthdays coming up, which I am doing builds for, and of course, my friends Modkiller and Kogut had some things to do with me, so I got busy. But anyway, I'm gonna bring to you my 5th episode of my series on all of my builds on Autcraft. This is basically, well, this is actually the very last build that I made in the old survival worlds before they were reset. Before I get into that base, I want to talk about something that kind of happened to me at school, which really meant a lot to me. So anyway, I was in like regular public high school around this time, but I was in 2 special school districts kind of classes, one for PE and one for English. And for my English class, I got one of the most well-regarded members of the SSD staff and as my teacher, which was really nice for me. I originally got to know this person because I had like a speech teacher that kind of, it's like I think once or twice a week she would she'd come to my class, call me, or ask me, kind of call me down to her office, and then we would just have conversations to kind of improve my speech skills. And when I first started talking with her, she actually shared an office with the woman that was going to be my English teacher next year, and I kind of gotten to know her that way. And so by the time she became my teacher, I actually knew her a little bit. And it wasn't like I was just someone who I didn't know, or it wasn't like I was getting a stranger I didn't know. A little bit about her, my English teacher. She originally actually came from Wyoming, it's like this really small town, probably of like a few thousand people or so, and like in the northeastern part of Wyoming. And she actually, I think at one point in her life, I don't remember if she came to Missouri where I live, or if she'd been to a few other places before, but I had, of course, getting to know this person was just an experience it's definitely an experience to remember, and, well, for many reasons. And it's like when I was first, and like the first times, like the first few weeks, I had her in my class. She talked about she talked about her 2 daughters, which she hasn't. The older one of the 2, which her name was Kesley. She didn't play Minecraft, but she was, I believe she was into a lot of like arts and crafts kind of stuff, and she also really liked to travel. Like I think she even wanted to go like to some places, I think maybe like in Europe, or That's all I really remember. She just wanted to travel, and she was into arts and crafts. But the younger of her two daughters, Kyla, was actually uh, she was only like 9 years old around the time that I got to know my teacher, and a lot of the conversations I had with her, she'd mentioned that her youngest daughter Kyla was autistic, and she really liked Minecraft. In fact, like she even told me this one story in which I think her and Kyla were on like a road trip somewhere for a few hours, and uh I think she had her laptop that she would use at school with her, and I think for the trip she gave the laptop to Kyla so that she could play Minecraft, and she played Minecraft like the entire trip. Like I'm talking like a few hours. Yeah. And actually that was kind of a dream of mine to like own a laptop and be able to just play Minecraft on the go, but of course we really just don't have the best disposable income to spend on such things like that. And my mom actually did buy me a computer that for me to so that I could play on Autcraft without having to share a computer with her. Like she got me an HP desktop, and I just remember I wanted it to be a quad core processor with 8 gigs of RAM, and she actually found a computer with exactly those specs, when of course I couldn't thank her enough. And well, anyway, going back to the subtopic at hand, and a few of the and also in a few other conversations I had with Cabela's or my English teacher, I had talked to her about Autcraft, and kind of talked about that I was a member of the server for that was really geared towards making being like a safe and helpful environment for uh, primarily autistic children, but it's for all ages. And she was and I guess she thought, well, oh, how nice of that. And in fact, actually, she had decided that she was going to have Kyla get whitelisted so that so we could both play Minecraft together. Uh, and it's just around that time I was just floored, because around that time I was just I believe I was still in the old in the second base, that one with the auto sorter, and that was around the time I was really having that I believe it was that problem where the chunks were corrupting, and I was facing that, and that was basically preventing me from being able to use the auto sorter. And uh and then when my English teacher announced that she told me that she was going to have her daughter get whitelisted onto the same server that I'm playing on, I just got really excited. Yes, I saw this as kind of a new friendship opportunity, and uh, and then of course it took her a couple of weeks to be whitelisted, but a few weeks later when she finally was accepted, uh, I don't remember if I actually gave her a tour for when her first day logging on, but uh, I think at least somebody would have, or possibly Modkiller or n1njag0 would have gave her a tour because prior to her, prior to Kyla coming on Autcraft, uh, I actually told Modkiller and n1njag0 because they were both my friends at the time, and then I think when Kyla joined, they actually gave her a tour, or I might have, I don't really remember, and in fact, within Kyla's first week on, I think it might have been her first week or second week on the server, I actually got to see her house, or her base that she had built, and at that time, Kyla, Modkiller, and n1njag0 have all settled on an island, kind of out like basically with just ocean surrounding it. It would have been bigger than this island, but I think it might have been about the size of that island, maybe a little bit bigger. And uh, actually, Kyla wasn't really that much of a builder. She kind of uh, like literally her house was merely a box made out of birchwood with windows in it, but it was still kind of really, I just thought it was really nice to have someone who actually lived very close to me playing on the server with me, and in fact also n1njag0 and Modkiller went to do their own builds on the island as well, and since at the time I really was just having an emotional breakup with that auto sorting base and all the problems I was having with it, I really kind of jumped at this opportunity to build a new base and kind of start fresh in that regard. And I did ask Kyla before I decided to build, and I think I also asked Modkiller and n1njag0, and they're like, sure, go ahead. And I actually went ahead and built a base consisting of like glass domes underwater connected by like short tunnels. And I didn't actually recreate that base on this world, but I have enough screenshots of it that I thought that, well, I could just show you the screenshots in the video, so that's what I'm gonna do. In fact, this is one of the screenshots of the island, and Kyla's house would have been kind of that birch building that's that's like right in the center of the picture, and I don't remember who built that house over there, but I think it was Modkiller. But and I think that might have been Kyla's, although I don't really remember. And she actually was in a few of the other screenshots that I showed on I think it was in the Guardian farm, but of course here she is here. And I don't remember who built that, but I'm thinking it was Kyla and Modkiller maybe. And that was kind of another build of Kyla's, and this was a sheep farm that I actually ended up building. Kyla really wanted a sheep farm, so I built her one. In fact, these banners were really cool. That like you could just have the letters like that, and how they're even multicolored. And anyway, it was just kind of the staircase that went down and kind of into this kind of room, and like the entrance to the sheep farm was there. And how this farm worked is you would have rode in a minecart, and then there's you'd actually would go through like a tunnel where the sheep actually were, and of course they were surrounded with grass so that they could regenerate their wool. I don't really remember where I found this design, though I didn't design this farm. It was on a certain YouTuber. I don't really remember off the top of my head, but if I do, I'll put it in the video and editing. But basically, you would go through. Well, this isn't really in the picture, but in the completed version of this farm, I would have actually made a track out of powered rails that actually was connected to a redstone clock, so that it would basically pulse on and off, and kind of doing it that way would let the minecart move, but a lot slower than if the rail was just on solidly, and that kind of helped me with being able to shear the sheep as I went through the tunnel. And then this is kind of then you kind of go to the end, and then you turn around and go back through. And I actually made this farm so that it was quite completely automated. So it of course had all this redstone circuitry just to control it. And in fact, I even like made a diagram of like a logic diagram of all that, of how all that worked, and I uploaded it to the forums along with a showcase of this build. I mean, it wasn't my best of work, but I mean, I could have. I mean, I could have compacted this a lot, but I wasn't really that great. Like at this point in time, I knew how to design redstone like logic circuits, but I didn't exactly know how to compact things. So I just kind of laid it out, like spread out, but in a way that I could easily see what each thing would do. And this was actually like a waiting area that, like after you sheared the sheep, you would kind of wait in here for a few minutes while they regrow their wool, and then you go back for another lap. This is just kind of the top of the area where the sheep were. This is kind of another view of the island. This was actually taken kind of early on in the construction of my third base. And of course, I actually was mindful of the 30 block rule when I built this. I think it was maybe 100 or 200 blocks away from the island, but it was of course still in render distance. And Kyla really liked this build. I think she actually went in it a few times, but most of the time she kind of stayed on the island. And how I would have built this is there was this site that I kind of learned about that was called plots. In fact, I could actually show it to you. And basically here it's like they have a guide on, of course, how to build like spherical objects in Minecraft. Like they have like for all of these different things where you could click on this and then you could choose what size sphere you want, and then basically this is kind of how I built a lot of my structures. Like so, and then you could also like show only one layer of it, and that was really helpful for the building process. And I would have actually went for something like this when I was building my base. And so at first I just built the dome underwater, and when the dome was complete I would have went inside the dome and then cleared all the water out with sponges. And this was actually taken when I first finished draining out the dome, but it was before I started building like the floor of the base. So this was essentially just like a dome built on the sea floor, or on the ocean floor. This was actually kind of taken when the floor was done, or at least partially. And at the time, I think I had built my guardian farm, but and it's like I went with sea lanterns for the imprisoning for the dome part, but for the underfloor lighting, I just kind of went with jack-o'-lanterns because. Well, for the underfloor lighting, I went with jack-o'-lanterns because in the finished base, I would have covered over the entire floor with carpeting or carpet, so like you couldn't see the jack-o'-lanterns. So this is kind of another view of the island. And this is I took this when I was actually in a boat, kind of looking at the side of the island, and you can also kind of see we sort of ran out of space, so we kind of built off the island, and I think actually I put those pillars there just because I wanted it to kind of look like the ground was supported, not just floating, and then kind of just I built that as kind of its decoration. And this was later on in the construction of the base, and this would have been what the base would have looked like in its final form, or at least the farthest I got into building it before the map reset. Like the first part I would have built would have been, of course, this dome, and next I would have built this part, which would have been, it's actually a boat lift. How it would work is you'd come in like to here on a boat, and and this was actually like a I guess you call it like a water escalator, where you could like ride down and then go into the dock. And then if you wanted to leave the base on a boat, you just go into the dock and then go up the escalator. And this tunnel I would have built after the dock. And then I think this dome here, which is the storage room, that was what would have been the last area of the base I had built. And in fact, this beacon here actually was, I made it so that it would change colors depending on whether it was daytime or nighttime. And this kind of, I built this part of the base, this kind of like, I guess you call it a cupola, I guess, or at least that's what I called it at the time. It was basically, it's just kind of like another, I meant to have it as like sort of a, like a bedroom, or it's like the below was the main lobby, and this was kind of like my personal lounge. Basically, that was what I was going for. And you would have I had a contraption where you'd throw ender pearls upward, and it would teleport you into there. And of course, this is another view of the boats. The boat lift. And there's a side view. And this part of the base, I think I actually took inspiration from Monkey Farm when I built this, because at the time I was watching his channel, and he actually did a lot of kind of like contraptions with boats, and in one of his worlds he actually made like a version of this kind of thing, but it was way bigger, because he built a base underwater in one of the customized worlds where the ocean actually went all the way down to bedrock, and he made like a really deeper, longer version of this. And that was kind of entering the boat lift. And of course, the dock would have been straight ahead. And this is inside the room. And I even had this this kind of boat dock where you'd go in and then you press the button and it would lift the boat out of the water, which is pretty cool. And this was actually, I think, before I actually didn't. The reason I didn't go for an automated boat dispenser was because at the time, like of course, with the region protection on Autcraft, it kind of disabled certain things. I think it would have disabled boats from. I think the thing was boats wouldn't break when they hit cactus, but around this time, this was in 1.8, so like if this was back when your boat like would literally disintegrate if you would like even if you just hit a wall at like 5 miles an hour. And I just remember boats being really just so problematic and buggy, and especially on multiplayer they were. And I think that was actually a driving move to make me build the tunnel connecting this base to the island, and I actually would have used that more often than this boat dock, kind of for that reason. And of course, this is the main lobby, and I wasn't really sure what to put in the middle, but so I kind of built these pillars here as I wanted to make it look like the top of the dome was being supported by something, and I just kind of decided to put those there. And I think even those lights would have been redstone controlled as well. And this would have been, I think this was the going into the tunnel that went into the island. And this was actually a banner design. I don't remember where I got it. I think I may have come up with it on my own, actually. And I actually would like to make a few more of those banners and put them in my ACO base, because I kind of like how that looks. I kind of like that design. And this was taken before the tunnel was complete, but this would have had minecart tracks going through, so you could ride a minecart to the island. And this is kind of the other end of the tunnel, and that area would go into a staircase that went up to the surface, as you can see here. Also, as you can see, this is kind of a bit of a weird building style. I went with this because at around this time I was still just kind of making the best of what materials I had, and this, I think, because I was still in school when I was building this, I didn't really have the most time on my hands to gather like the more expensive building materials, so I just kind of went with what was the most easy to get. And I actually kind of think this turned out pretty good. And this is actually the top of the. This is basically like the entryway into there. It's like kind of you're entering like a subway tunnel, which is pretty cool. I think Kyla would have put that there. And this would be going into the storage room. And of course, this is the looking down into the storage room. I never actually really got that far with the storage room. Like I did get it finished, but I think like around the time I would have completed this part of the base, that's would have been the time that Autism Father would have announced the the map reset, or if he didn't announce it yet, this would have been there was a lot of chatter going around where like like a map reset was on the horizon, and like you should take action to save as much of your items as you can. And anyway, I actually didn't think this I got the time. I was really proud of this build, and of course nowadays I kind of like I tend to use more like white blocks, or it's like I try to make my builds look very like futuristic kind of. But at the time I this was just kind of like a build that I would have thrown together with, again, with the blocks that I had a lot of. And of course, since I did a lot of digging out like the areas, and I think even some mining in the resource world, I would have had lots of like granite and diorite and andesite, and I decided to use all those blocks in some in a few of my builds. And again, like I said this in my previous video, but I feel like this was a build that diorite actually looked good with, and of course I used colors that kind of like some would contrast and some would kind of blend together. This is actually like in my opinion, like I mean, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, of course, but in my opinion, this is a really nice storage room. And in the kind of in this space here, I would have built an auto smelter. I never put an auto sorter in space, but and I don't actually have any screenshots. This is the only screenshot I have of this auto smelter, but I think for this I would have used mine carts for the like distributing the items. And it was a pretty big auto smelter. I actually didn't remember using it that much because, again, by the time I completed this part of the base, this would have been near, like when the world reset was just coming on the horizon. This is just kind of looking up into the beacons in the center of the base. And this is actually the inside of that cupola room on the top. And I think n1njag0 would have put this here, although I don't remember. This was from, man, I really remember that dragon fight. Like it was, it was like I think it was like one of the first times when there was more than 100 players on the server. It was just crazy. And this is my diagram of that redstone for the sheep farm. And if you are interested, you can pause the video here. And Kyla would have been, like, we were kind of friends, but of course I would have been around like 15 or 16 years old, and Kyla was 9 years old, and I think a few months, a month or two later, she turned 10. And like my parents were really up in the air about like how me having a relationship with like a 10-year-old girl would go, but at the time of but me being on a Minecraft server as well, moderated and monitored as Autcraft, and also even knowing Kyla's mother in person kind of gave me confidence that if anything were to go wrong with my relationship with Kyla, I had I of course had the staff to fall back to, and I also had my teacher to fall back to. And actually, I got to know this person, this English teacher so well that even into my senior year in high school, I actually would go down to her office just to talk to her, and in fact she actually she didn't mind me going there at all, and at the time that would have been in I had this class at the very end of my schedule which is basically like a class where you just sit and either chill or relax, or if you had homework to do, you do your homework. And at the time, usually the teacher for there wouldn't mind me going over to Miss Cabela's office, and I think even and I think this was also still when that speech teacher was talking to me, so I would have sometimes would have been for her, and sometimes would have been because I wanted to talk with Miss Cabela's. And in fact, we basically just kind of kept talking to each other, and it's like I talk about my kind of how Autcraft was going, and also I was really big into my like electronics projects at that time, so I would have talked about those with her as well. And although I kind of lost touch with her after I left school when I graduated, because like I had her email address and I would talk to her over email, but at one point I actually lost my password, and thus I kind of lost access to her address with it. And I think even today I actually went to the school's website to try to actually send her another message, but I don't know if that'll really get through to her or not, but I just thought I'd try that just to kind of be like, hey, I'm doing great, but how's you and how's Kyla doing? You know, just kind of that sort of thing. And of course, me and Kyla, just because of the age difference, we didn't really get along the best, but we were still friends. But I think after a few of enough, I think at one point she actually kind of stopped playing on Autcraft, and then later on she come back sometimes, but I haven't seen her on Autcraft in at least a year or two, and I do miss her. But I mean, like now I have ACO and everyone over there that as like another family to me. So it's like it kind of didn't really affect me that much, Kyla leaving. And but it was definitely like getting to know her and getting to know that teacher was just it's just kind of an experience for me to remember, definitely. And I know this video is really getting long, but around this time, things really kind of got muddy. Like I would, it's like I think at the time I was in that third base, I actually downloaded I believe it was the Technic launcher, and I first got into modded. And then also, I think Modkiller even started to invite me to other servers, which, of course, that's against the rules, but we found our ways to get around that. And usually things went well, but it was usually because I think Modkiller wanted to take me to a server that had creative mode so we could design our projects. And actually, for quite a while, Modkiller had been hosting his own creative server, which we've been using for like our builds before Autcraft Creative was a thing. And also, actually, around this time that I was in the third base, I actually may have gotten involved in a few conversations with Redstone Nerd, or that player that I mentioned, and I believe it was the second video in the series. And around that time, he was really like running into a lot of personal and life problems, and he kind of left Autcraft for a few different reasons. And I think he mentioned that he had he even lost a relationship just because of his autism, which is just sad. And I think also, and it's like he also ran into a lot of problems, like with, I think he even got in trouble with the staff on Autcraft a few times, and he had to get muted and talked to in private. You know that kind of like you know that stuff. And like I really wanted to help him, but he just it just kind of became a lost cause because he just kept getting in trouble. And although I remember one time I actually helped build a guardian farm for him, and it would have been after I built the guardian farm I talked about in the previous episode of the series. And I actually went on to use his guardian farm like to get experience for a little while. And but again, that was before the world's reset, I think. And just to kind of end off this video, I'm gonna just say like about the map reset. I really wish that Autism Father would have uploaded the worlds, like so that we could download them and just kind of remember all of our old builds and we could keep them. But AF was like, well, these worlds are several tens of gigabytes, and that would be just too much to upload them. And I was like, oh, I understand, but it was just sad that I was that like 3 of my bases and quite a few of my farms were about to be deleted and lost forever. But it was kind of bittersweet. Like it was, I mean, it was sad that I was losing my builds, but I was happy that starting with fresh worlds would definitely eliminate the lag problems, and of course the server was going to run so much better. And of course AF actually had shrunken the world borders just so that the worlds don't get too big, to kind of avoid the problem that he ran into with the old build worlds. And and they have been expanded a few times over the years as more updates came to Minecraft, and so of course so people could find the new biomes and the new structures and that. I mean, if I would have been able to download or even if I even had time travel, I would definitely want to go back to when Autcraft still had the old build worlds, and then be able to copy all my builds over to a creative world. But back then I didn't even have Schematica, and I didn't even have like I think Modkiller even found like a world downloader mod, but I never got that. And I guess at the time I was also kind of careful about what mods I was going to use on the server. And yeah, I really had a lot to cover in this video, so I kind of apologize for it being this long, but this was this was the last of my builds that were in the old build worlds, and all my videos in the series from this point on are going to be about builds that are in the worlds that exist today. So this is also going to be my last video of me being on my creative world. So next video I'm actually looking into I already did the next few these next bases I'm going to cover I already covered in previous videos, but as part of this series I'm actually going to go into some of the history behind them and kind of my thought process about why I built them and what went wrong with them and why I moved on to another base. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember to rate, comment, like, and subscribe. And this is Dusty Circuit signing off. Bye.